Well, hello guys, and welcome to a new chapter, the last chapter of 1 Timothy, and it's 1 Timothy 6. Awesome that you're joining again this Bible study, and I hope God will bless you. Here is the text. All you who are under the yoke of slavery should consider their masters worthy of full respect, so that God's name and our teaching may not be slandered. First point. In this verse, Paul transitions from the selection and management of elders in the church to provide instruction to Christians in Ephesus who lived as slaves, and that is captured as a result of war or offered as tribute, and bondservants, that are people that served as slaves until they paid off their debt. As Rome survived on the backs of slaves drawn from peoples they conquered, slaves represented a sizable part of Roman society in the first century. Second, we find in 1 Corinthians 7 verse 21 that Paul encouraged slaves to obtain freedom legally whenever possible. Although he pled for the freedom of the runaway slave Onesimus in the letter of Philemon, you can read it in Philemon 1 verse 8 to 16, Paul did not focus his ministry on the abolition of slavery. Instead, as we see in this verse, Paul urged slaves to behave in a manner bringing God glory, no matter what their circumstances were, so that God's name and our teaching may not be slandered. In other words, honoring God and winning others to Him is the believer's foremost priority. And thirdly, Paul's word underlines we as Christians must never be the excuse for people to reject the gospel. Rather than rebel against their masters, Christian slaves were to live godly lives, to help bring glory to the Lord and reach people for Christ. Brothers, slavery is forbidden in all but a few countries in the world today. But in practice, debt bondage, forced labor, sexual slavery, child slavery, forced begging, and even enlistment of children as soldiers occur to varying degrees in 15 countries. When we look at human trafficking to meet forced labor, domestic services and sexual exploitation, modern slavery occurs in some like 176 countries, if not more. Even Islamic terror groups have enslaved previously free Christians. This is a hard pill to swallow. Behave in a manner to give God the glory so that we can bring our exploiter to Christ. Paul's words challenge what we believe to be right in our modern times, but we must not forget the context of when he was writing either. Holding that thought, how many of us are slaves to our work? Sure, we are compensated with a salary and have the freedom to walk away from the employment if we want, unless we have a contract. But are we stuck in a paradigm where we work to live, or one where we live to work? In working, do we glorify God? The second part of this verse is key. Our conduct must ensure that God's name and our teaching may not be slandered. What does God command of us? To love God and to love one another, and He has commissioned us to spread His gospel. If Jesus was given the unbearable task to die on the cross for our sins, then it follows that each of us will be called to glorify Him with much sacrifice. For some, it may be serving masters faithfully. For others, it may be convince foreign governments to change their slavery or forced labor laws. And for others, it may be to stand up against oppressors defiantly. Each case is dependent on the rules and norms of humans and society, but this verse reminds us that we may be called to serve faithfully in places not worthy of us, so that God's truth will take root in the hearts of those that don't know our Master. May God bless us all.